Hello everyone, Chris here again. In this video I will show you a round of gameplay from Deeper Darkness, giving examples of some of the key mechanics. In this scenario, a few turns have passed and the soldiers have already discovered the generator room. This is a strong start for them. If they can get the generator running, they'll be halfway to completing one of their win conditions. The round starts with the officer, who has a resolve of 8, which is the highest current resolve value. He's taken some early game sanity damage from an event card, but still has full health. Remaining sanity and health points are marked on the character cards with coloured dice, blue for sanity, red for health. He begins his turn by moving his maximum distance of 4 hexes. Characters can move through allies and enemies unless otherwise stated by aberrations or cards from the event deck. He ends his movement adjacent to a rat swarm, and attempting to thin out their numbers, attacks at point blank range. This is good for him because it means there is no range penalty applied to the damage, but even so he rolls a 4, not quite enough to kill the swarm. Remaining health is displayed using a red wound die next to the swarm that took damage. As a result of the officer's attack, the target swarm and the swarm adjacent to it both flip their tokens to their aggressive state. They can now attack characters freely. The officer has no minor actions to take, so ends his turn. At the end of each soldier's turn, the player controlling Nithodius rolls an event check using a d6. For sane characters, an event card will be drawn if a 5 or 6 is rolled. A 5 is rolled, and a card is drawn and resolved for the officer. The card in question is Psychological Training, which is good news for him. This card restores 1d6 sanity to the officer. He rolls a 3, bringing him back up to full sanity levels. The turn passes to Nithodius, who is next in the resolve order. During game setup, the player controlling Nithodius placed 4 room tokens face down in the 4 corners of the map. The soldiers have discovered the generator room, but the location of the radio room, the second part of their victory condition, is still unknown to them. The Nithodius player also spawned 3 rat nests and 4 rat swarm tokens during game setup. Active nests can spawn rat swarms in adjacent hexes, but can only be placed on specific locations on the map. Nithodius uses one of his 5 spells, Spawn Vermin, which generates a varying number of rat swarms depending on a die roll. He rolls a 6, which gives 2 swarms and a bonus nest that can be placed on any inactive nest location. He spawns the first rat swarm adjacent to himself, and places the nest here before spawning the second swarm adjacent to it. With that spell complete, a second spell may be used. He uses Despair, which allows him to draw 2 cards from the event deck, resolve 1, and replace the other card on either the top or bottom of the event deck. The 2 cards drawn are the Model 24 equipment card and the Insanity card, They Are In Me. The Model 24 is a useful tool for the soldiers, so it is placed on the bottom of the deck. The Insanity card is then resolved, but because it can only resolve on characters who have turned insane, it is instead attached to one of the characters, in this case the Private, to make future sanity checks more difficult. Nithodius ends his turn, and play passes to the Stormtrooper. The Stormtrooper has a useful aberration, which prevents enemies from passing through his character token, so he wants to stay in corridors whenever possible. He moves 2 hexes, and uses his minor action to help with repairs to the generator, restoring a set number of 2 health to it. The generator begins the game at -6 health, but becomes active at 0 health. If it falls below -13, it is destroyed, and the only remaining option for the soldiers will be to face Nithodius head-on. The Stormtrooper moves back to his starting position with his remaining 2 movement to guard the passage. The Nithodius player rolls a 1 for the Stormtrooper's event check, so no card is drawn this turn. Next in resolve order is the Engineer. His aberration allows him to make additional repairs to the generator. As his minor action, he repairs the set number of 2 health points, but unfortunately his roll to heal more only results in a 1. A total of 3 health is restored to the generator, and it now sits at -1. It won't take much more to get it back up and running. With the location of the generator already known, and repairs going well, the Engineer decides not to use a move action and ends his turn. The Nithodius player rolls a 3 for the Engineer's event check, and so he escapes having to draw a card as well. It is now the Machine Gunner's turn. The Machine Gunner has the highest health value amongst the soldiers, and so has little to fear from lone rat swarms. He uses his move action to close the distance between him and 2 swarms. He attacks 1 rat swarm, rolling 2d6. He rolls a 9, which is more than enough to wipe out the swarm, but it turns the token of the adjacent swarm to its aggressive state. His aberration allows him to make a second weaker attack against another enemy, and he does so, dealing 2 damage and leaving the rat swarm with 3 remaining health. He ends his turn, and the Nithodius player rolls a 4. The Machine Gunner narrowly avoids needing to draw. The rat swarms are next in the resolve order. Each rat swarm can move and attack independently. The first swarm deals a set damage value of 1 to the officer and ends its turn without moving. At the end of each rat swarm token's turn, a sanity check is made on each soldier within 3 hexes who has line of sight. The officer's check is 1d6 from the swarm that just ended its turn, plus another 2 from other swarms within 3 hexes. The roll results in a 5, giving a total of 7. The result of the check must be higher than the character's remaining health before it can start dealing sanity damage. If the check results in a number lower or equal to a character's remaining health, they are unfazed by the swarms of vermin surrounding them. If the result is higher than the remaining health value, the difference is taken as sanity damage. In this case, the officer's remaining health is 5, and with the sanity check resulting in a 7, 2 points of sanity damage are taken by the officer. The second swarm moves 1 and attacks the officer, dealing 1 point of damage. It then ends its turn, causing another sanity check. This time, because 2 swarms are adjacent to one another and the target, another d6 is added to the sanity check's difficulty. This time the check is 2d6, plus 1 from the other rat swarm. Luckily for the officer, a total of 6 results in only 2 points of sanity damage being taken. The next swarm moves into configuration with the other 2 swarms. When 3 rat swarm tokens become arranged in this way, they can be exchanged for a king rat token. In addition to having more health, this token comes into play in an aggressive state and can deal 1d6 damage. The newly formed king rat token moves adjacent to the private and attacks, dealing 3 damage. As it ends its turn, a sanity check is made on the private. A 3 is rolled, which is just high enough to drive the private insane. With the additional difficulty of the unresolved event card, 1 point of sanity damage slips through. With his sanity now at 0, his character card and token are immediately flipped and damage is reset. The officer is also in range, and so he must also make a sanity check. A 6 is rolled, causing 2 sanity damage, and his total sanity drops to 0. Bad news. His token and character card are immediately flipped over and damage is reset. This is good for Nithodius. He can grow stronger from this descent into madness. If 3 of the soldiers are insane at the same time, Nithodius will reach his second form. The final rat swarm takes its turn, attacking the machine gunner, dealing 1 damage, and then retreats. The final character to take a turn is the private. He moves 4 hexes, revealing the armory, which contains the flamethrower. He immediately uses his minor action to pick it up, and his normal 1d6 weapon is now replaced. He is limited to using the flamethrower template when making attacks, and takes a movement penalty of 1, but he can now destroy rat nests. He attacks the closest nest with the flamethrower, instantly destroying it. His aberration requires him to roll 2d6 at the end of his turn. Identical numbers mean the private will shoot himself. He rolls a 3 and a 1. Good news for both sides. It's in the Nithodius player's best interest to keep the soldiers alive just long enough to drive 3 of them insane so he can change form. If the private were to be killed now, there would be 1 less insane character in play. He ends his turn, but unfortunately a 1 is rolled in the event check. Insane characters must draw if a 1, 2, 3 or 4 is rolled. Even worse is that the card drawn is Generator Explosion. 2d6 damage is dealt to the generator, knocking its health down to -9 with the resulting roll of 8. The engineer is also caught in the blast and takes 1d6 damage. This leaves him in a bad way and vulnerable to future sanity checks with health now so low. The round is complete, and play will resume with the now insane officer. Thanks for watching everyone, and I hope that you enjoyed this demo of the game.